Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 69, Danielle Zarcaro check-in. What's new with the biz, WordPress, and offering site audits? Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast if you love business and real stories from the trenches. And after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share if we've earned it. Hit that notification bell too if you're on YouTube so you don't miss each episode. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders, episode 69. We are here with Danielle Zarcaro once again. This is her third time back. If you want to say hi.
Wow. Can't believe it.
It's like, wow. Yeah, I don't know when you did your first one. You were one of the first guests, I think.
I've done one on my own, and then I did one with the three of us together.
Yeah, with Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the crew.
Yeah.
I thought it's great to have you back again this week. We're gonna do something. I always like to try to theme things.
Mm-hmm.
This will be like we can start calling these the check-ins. See how we're doing, and see how your business is doing, what lessons you've learned recently, and stuff like that. Now, obviously, Danielle is a web developer, so does a lot of WordPress. I don't know if you're doing other things these days. Are you doing anything else besides?
No, it's mostly WordPress. It's so hard to commit to a new thing. I'm very much, when there's a project, I will learn it. So if something were to come along where I'm like, wow, this thing works with this, and then I would, potentially dive into that new thing. But I mean, for now it's WordPress, and it's changing so much that sort of the sky's the limit right now. The potential is all there, and everything's still up in the air, 4 years later. And it's WordPress for now. And, there's even, headless stuff going on, and there's just so many things that people are doing that we don't have to start from scratch for ourselves. Even building blocks, you don't have to start from scratch for like normal skill level people and above average skill level people. You don't have to be this super engineer to figure out anymore.
That's right. So. Yeah. WordPress alone, it's easy to just focus on WordPress. So much of the web is driven by WordPress, and but there, like you said, there's so much flexibility in what you can do with it. There's from headless, doing headless work where WordPress is just the back end, and you use some other like Gatsby or something for the front end. You could go that route. That's a possibility, or you can use different page builders, or you can or you just use it out of the box and just have fun with blocks.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a missed opportunity from, as much as it's an open source platform, it still needs its marketing behind it, and it's a very developer led. It's not as developer led as like a Magento or all of these other bigger dev ones, but it was developer led in terms of choosing WordPress over like a Squarespace. So I feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity to advertise it as these new updates make it so that we there's this fear of not having a niche, I guess, where like WordPress can now literally become anything for anybody. Because before it was like a learning curve, and then the page builders came along, but you still had to learn it, and it was buggy and it was annoying. And so now the ecosystem is maturing, and really could be anything for anybody. And I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I don't know. It's an angle.
Yeah, it's an angle. Yeah, it really is trying to be everything to everybody. And, which is the good part of that, though, is you can, from either a freelancer developer, somebody that's solo, figuring out your thing, like you can kind of figure it out, the way you like to build things, and any way possible. or even from an agency or whatever perspective. You can say, this is the way we build stuff, and kind of figure out your framework. And that's the cool thing. It's flexible like that, because I work with a lot of different agencies and stuff, and some are still doing things the old legacy way, and they probably aren't changing anytime soon. They're just going to continue to do that. Same with there's a lot of Elementor out there. I keep getting more. I used to be anti-page builder, but now it's just like, I've just accepted the fact that there's Elementor sites everywhere. And so that's just another way to build sites. And
yeah, I mean, I still see sites that use like things that stopped being best practice 10 years ago. I mean, that's kind of WordPress is backwards compatible pretty solidly, depending on, what you're doing. But
yeah,
I feel like people don't like change. So when you're changing a big thing about how things work, I really like, so I focus on primarily existing sites and bringing them, either, up to par, or, fixing bugs or maintaining them or whatever. A lot of it is either like big sites or sites that have already been existing. So I really love that there's going to be a little bit more of a standard in terms of where things are and how, because it used to be themes, put it on your site, whatever, but everything stayed the same content wise. And then we sort of stuck everything in the theme, and plugins were like, let's try to minimize the amount of plugins we have. As many as possible. If you could have no plugins, that would be super. And then like everything got in the theme. And so now everything is everywhere. So I kind of like this move back to some kind of standardized, like, best practice that we can all sort of strive for.
So you mean, so when you say everywhere, I mean, you like, it could be in plugins. It's not everything's in the theme anymore.
Custom plugins. It could be in even just custom post types are in the theme. People have their own folder structure. It could be in a dist folder. It could be in a assets folder. It could be compiled into CSS and you accidentally touch that and then something gets compiled, or it's a custom theme with Elementor on top of it. And then you have CSS that's in 17 possible different places and you can't figure out which place it's in. So then you have to make that call where you're like, do I do the specificity, wars? Do I stick in important? Just, like, it just becomes layers after layers. And then you have like, there were many ways that you could add like a template file. So you could have a theme, a page template, but then you can have a template part. And then inside of that, you could have a folder with components. And then inside, like, everybody had their own best practice, which is great for internal use. But
well, I mean, that's what's challenging. That there's people out there that probably make fun of WordPress developers. Or you're a WordPress developer, you don't know anything about modern, programming or whatever, and the fact of the matter is, what I find is, I think WordPress developers have to have a deeper skill set. And because when you get a project, especially if it's something especially if it's custom, if it's something another developer's built, you have to have a pretty good knowledge of web development and all the things that come with it, even to, things like React and things like that, because you never know what you're going to run into, and you have to be able to work in all these different kinds of builds and frameworks, and so it makes that's what kind of makes the job interesting. But it, because it's challenging. But yeah, you have to be pretty skilled these days to be a WordPress developer. If you're gonna
well, because people say that because it has a lower bar of entry. So, which, it's nice. You can learn a little bit and then grow. But I feel like for developers, it had a lower bar of entry, but for non-developers, it had a much higher bar. And so it sort of had this thing where if you're building a simple site, oh Lord, you're never going to get your website to look like the demo. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but that never happens. And so like now, hopefully we can get people, into WordPress and its possibilities. And you can still, as an agency, lock everything down and give
Yeah.
people limited options. You can hide stuff as an agency. You can be upfront with your client saying, if you were to ever leave, I could give you admin access, but so this way you don't mess anything up. Here's your, client access, and then don't give them access to certain things. And like there's ways
Mhm.
that you can still do what we were doing efficiently without having to do everything your own way.
Right.
And then it also allows people to be able to like Google what this block is, and then they can find the answer without having to ask you. It just gives us more opportunity to play, I think.
Blocks in general is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people, especially in the WordPress community, have, like I said, no one likes to change. And so this is a really big change for a lot of people, and people are fighting it. And some people are like, I'm not going to be
It's
building a
open
block
source. Go
theme.
make your own WordPress classic. Call it something, make a
That's
fork.
right.
And that's what WordPress was, and it was its own
Yeah.
fork. And go make a fork. Go make it,
Yeah.
you know, whatever you call it. I'm not great at branding,
Yeah.
but whatever you call it, it's the
Yeah.
WordPress classic, and just go do what you're doing. I found it to be not WordPress anymore. It was like a GUI website. Like they had like an interface that you can add stuff to a website, but it had like code and stuff, and then you're adding like these random custom fields, and then you're like doing things like, and then you're relying. It's just it was a mess. It's not friendly at all for anybody to work with. You might as well just make your own at that point. It's basically you're just using a WordPress. You're using an admin interface, and it
Yeah.
happens to be WordPress. So go make your own thing. I don't know. Go maintain it.
Whatever you want to do. That's the beautiful
Right?
part
Like
about
we
it.
don't have to
Yeah.
follow, and we also don't have to agree with everything WordPress does either. That doesn't mean that we
Yeah.
have to resist change for the sake of
Yeah.
resisting either.
Yeah. Well, you got to think of the so for me, I like to stay on the edge of where WordPress is as much as possible, or push my clients in that direction, because my feeling is a long term view that this is where we are, this is where we're headed. So, and I feel like already when a client comes to me, especially if it's a new site we're developing or designing, that they're already starting to know that it's about blocks.
Yeah.
So if you now build them something that's not blocks, what's that going to look like to them? Are they going to, or maybe some will be like, "Hey, great," but others will be like, "Well, this isn't a very modern site. Then why am I not able to easily update my content and everything? And why can't I use blocks?" Because I think it's going to become the expectation in the coming years that when they get a site built, they're going to be able to use blocks. They're going to be able to use it in that way. Have you? So I think we were chatting before this. You're getting ready to build your first full
Yeah.
site editing block theme.
Yeah, I've been gathering info. I'm not the edge case. So I'm like, as if we're talking about, I feel like this is often talked about with like Apple products, right? You have the people that go buy whatever is new immediately and they try it and
Mm.
they, you know, whatever. I'm like a generation behind everything
Okay.
because I like things to be stable. I like to, I mean, when it comes to Apple products, I like them to be a little bit cheaper. But,
Yeah.
I like the ecosystem to be a little bit more mature. So, because in the beginning, there were like at least a dozen block plugins and like things. I wanted to see where it was moving. I wanted to see what would be available to me. I like the longevity. Um, and I'm dealing with existing sites a lot of times. I'm
Yeah.
very particular about the new builds that I take on. Unless I'm white labeling, then it's a different situation. But um, and I do a lot based on existing designs. So I'll have a designer or a marketing team or whatever hand me stuff. So I do a lot of just like custom stuff anyway. So I've been utilizing the block editor um,
Mm.
for the content area, and then
Yeah.
styling based on whatever blocks are available. But I've been doing the typical header footer. So I'm going to dive into officially the full site editing experience, and I think
Yeah.
it'll pair really nicely. I know last time I was on, I was talking about overnight website and choosing Oxygen, and I think full site editing, especially with the new update coming up soon, I think it's going to be ready for it to be used. Because the idea for this is like yeah, you're going to be better off coming on and signing on with a maintenance plan for me. But the idea here is that you're getting a site, you're getting it now, and you're going to take it, and maybe it'll sit there for a year while your, business is growing or whatever it is, and the site can grow with you. And so I think full site editing will be a perfect fit for it. So it's just a matter of, yeah, now I'll actually jump in, build one, see what parts of it all need, see what parts will be optional, see how everything fits in. I don't do anything. I don't do like when I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna just build it all, and I'm probably gonna be focused in on that and like building my like much like what we would build our base themes that we would use to start off
Hmm.
our custom site. I'll
Right.
probably build out whatever my V1 is of the full site editing theme. I think it's ready. I think even just giving somebody access to their 404 page that they can do stuff to. You had no access to that. You had to install a plugin to be able to
Yep.
choose a page on your site that you would have to like no index. It was just like a workaround. So now just the fact that you can, I really like the idea of exporting the changes to a new theme. Like that's version control. Like
That's cool, right?
that's cool.
Yeah.
Like you can make change, like you can do that, have like a dev site, make some changes or whatever, and just play, and then like compile it down, and then now it's part of your theme. Like that's workflow. I love systems and processes like that.
Yeah.
That excites my brain like crazy. Like what are the possibilities? I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
we have some work to do on the database in terms of like being able to like export and then import without having to interfere with the database. But between advanced custom fields and their syncing ability and different blocks that are available, and I'm excited. I know people are you know feeling really frustrated still by it, but I love it. I love that it's starting to feel a little bit more solid.
well, things are settling down a little bit. Yeah, there was so many questions for a long time, and anything new is going to be a little scary at first, especially if your livelihood depends on it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was all about learning how this worked, and now we can focus on like, oh, what features are released this time instead of like,
yeah,
what did they change now? Now it's like, oh, what have they added to it? It's a different
right,
mindset.
right. You have the structure there to a solid structure. Yeah, I kind of and I get that you kind of hold off and wait, and that's good. And there are certain scenarios in my daily business or in the past where I have been like that, where I've kind of waited to just see, let other people deal with the bugs. If you're going to upgrade something or something, let other people deal with that. Give it a few months. But for some reason, I have this thing in me with WordPress that I want to just hack away at it. When I was back in the 2000s, when it was still like blog, I was, just basically a blog. I was trying to make it into a CMS. So I'd hack it and put in my own menus and do all this stuff to it to try to build members areas and things it wasn't supposed to do. When Customizer came along, when we were at Rapid Crush, we were, I was building the framework that we'd use to build all those themes. Um, Customizer was still in a kind of infancy a little bit in those
Mm-hmm.
days. We didn't know where that was going, and now it's not going anywhere. But
Yeah, that is another kind of contention that I get on a couple of calls. There's a couple of calls every week that I try to attend in these couple of different Facebook groups. And so one point of contention was like, they told us to do all the customizer stuff, and now they're telling us, never mind, we changed it. And I was sitting
yeah,
there thinking in my head, going, it's a valid point, but it became pretty clear that the whatever code it was built on could not handle the
yeah,
advanced things we were trying to do in there. So
right.
it
Unless you look under the hood, it's yeah. I mean, intuitively, it felt like, well, everything would just move to the customizer, and the customizers would become the block window and whatever you call it, and and that's where everything would happen. But yeah, at the time, like when I started working with it, it was, I was trying again do things that it wasn't supposed to do. I remember uh, I was like taken aback when I first started doing it, and there wasn't like a custom CSS field in the customizer yet, and I made my own, and then they released one like a year or two later. They released it, their additional CSS, and it like merged into mine. I had like two fields now, and it was like because the naming was similar or something. and I was like, okay, well, I'll not, and so I had to like deprecate mine, and it
Right.
was like, so it's the same way kind of with, now blocks. Like I started, already like, I was so eager to really build my first block, FSE block theme, um, and I did, so I went through that process. I got my own little boilerplate done. Just used that to build our first client site. I only got one under my belt so far, um, but like anything, you learn by doing. You just dive in, you figure out what. For me, it seems like so far, like full site editing theme is really boiled down. Like it's just as basic as you can get, and then everything else is driven by blocks and plugins and
Yeah,
everything.
and it is nice. One of the feedbacks that came upon in one of those calls was that now we're just throwing everything into a single theme.json. And so I agreed with that. And so I'm looking forward to that maturing as well, to being able to be like CSS, where yeah, technically you can use one giant document, but you can also split it up and make it easier to digest as well. So I'm kind
Mm,
of looking forward to like that maturing. So I'm
yeah,
willing to dive into it at its current version, and then I feel like that'll you can't wait too long, because then it gets even harder to learn. So like if I
yeah,
get
right.
the hang of it now, then I can adjust as we go. So that's
That's right.
I think that's the one area that I'm looking for. And then just some improvement in the interface. I feel like now that it's where it is, it'll be easier to make little improvements. Like there was a plugin that helped you see like what block you were currently on. Like it
Mm.
faded other blocks out, or it like outlined it or whatever. Because like sometimes it gets a little crazy in there. So I did like
Yeah,
that. So
I had like an epiphany for the longest time where you like I would try to click around to get to the block I needed, and then I just had this. I suddenly realized that what do they call it? Like the index on the side that has all the
yeah,
blocks
because
broken out.
everything's a
You can use
icon,
that to navigate them. Yeah,
right?
like oh, I just have to. This is how I actually can
Yeah,
safely get the things
yeah,
and not destroy the page.
yeah,
But yeah, it's interesting. What I so we're one of the things I like about it too, though, is it's like the ability, like when we were building themes way back when for the masses, to sell licenses and stuff. Demo content or sample content was really challenging. We were
mhm,
actually a few times we were like going to start it as a project, like how can we do this and make it push button, and we never really got anything off the ground there. But
mhm.
now it's like, with patterns and you can build that into your theme. So you can build a theme with everything like all the code blocks, like default anyway, that
Yeah,
you need to have start with a great structure and default content. It's a
yeah.
beautiful
Also
thing.
reusable blocks, which I think should have been called global blocks. But what do I know?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
reusable implies that, in my head, it implies that you can just take it and use it, and then, but you have to like, it's a global block. You're editing it everywhere unless you take it out of that, and then it no
Yeah.
longer
Reusable blocks.
gets
Yeah.
updates. But,
Yeah. Um,
but yeah,
yeah.
both of
Yeah.
those things are much better experience.
Yeah, for sure. And when you learn how, like, I mean, everything now saves to the database. Like
Hmm.
you can overwrite a template yourself in the site editor and save it to the database. And
Right. And
so
like
now it doesn't matter.
somebody went in and just totally demolished it, you could just delete it and it reverts back to the one you had.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Yeah, so there's a lot of good aspects to, like there's a lot of people that are anti block themes, anti blocks, and all that. Honestly, the more I work with it and stuff, I really like it. It's still going to be, there's still the process of if you design, especially if you design something very custom, of figuring out what blocks to use, or you're going to have to create a
Yeah.
custom block or use ACF. They got you can build blocks with ACF
Yeah.
now, which
I
is
really
fun.
like Genesis block. Genesis blocks? Is that what it's called?
Genesis blocks.
I really like that one, because then you can get into the dev where you've got the CSS associated with that block. You've got, you can use either PHP or you can use their builder. Like I like it.
Yeah.
It feels good to me.
But again,
Oh,
it's something where we're all going to have our own toolkit
yeah.
to kind of build stuff, and you can kind of create your own thing that you can deploy, and you can go and uh, sell a project to a client or whatever, but you have something out of the box already where it's easier to deploy and you can make it more affordable.
Yeah,
Um,
and I like that you can lock it down option wise too, because that's the thing, right? Unless somebody's building their own site, you don't want them to have all the options because then they're either going to do all of it or none of it, or it's not going to be right. So like even just accessibility wise, telling, your client, here's your color palette for text and here's your color palette for background, and like not allowing them. I mean, they
right.
could if they really tried hard, they could do a custom color, but this way it sort of locks in, what you can do, that font sizes, font choices. I mean, you can really just define these things. So I
Yes.
respond better to specific complaints about things because then we can come up with specific solutions to things like accessibility. How do we make it so clients don't screw stuff up? Well, they kind of already do. They don't put all text and images, and when they do, it's not what it should be. Like, you're not going to be able to. It's the whole point of WordPress is that people can use it and they're going to mess
Do
up.
whatever they want, right?
Right.
Yeah, but
So,
you can create some firewalls there to
yeah.
not allow them to do certain things. And that's actually interesting as you said that. I was thinking, depending on the company and how advanced they are or how large they are or whatever, sometimes they have style guides and
Mm-hmm.
rules they need to follow, and you can kind of build that into the theme now
Mm-hmm.
by only, these are the colors you use, these are our brand colors, this is the type of typography we want. So somebody's not throwing in something random. I actually don't like. I was working with a block plugin recently, and they had like 900 fonts. Like probably all Google fonts or whatever it was they were pulling from. I'm like, that's not good.
Especially
That's
now
not good for the ever.
with Google funds between GDPR and site speed and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's going to cause some issues.
I just did a podcast episode, and because I have an overnight website podcast too. Right now, it's like
Hmm.
super quick, just like tips. I'm trying to. I actually am approaching it as talking about a topic that I wrote a blog post about because I kind of
Hmm.
like the idea of digesting things in different ways, but not just sitting there reading a blog post for audio.
Good idea. Yeah.
So it'll have a transcript, it'll have all that stuff, but just consuming things in different ways. And that might change at some point. But I wrote one where it was like, stop using fancy fonts. And if you have to, then like, don't make it your important stuff. Like just simple things that you don't think about if you don't know if you don't do this all the time.
Right.
People love, I'm in, a bunch of like women's groups because a lot of times, even though I tangentially relate to being a woman, um, I'm in the queer community, so I
Mm-hmm.
am a female, but I'm also, non-binary. So I'm still allowed in the women's groups,
Oh, okay.
and they love their fancy fonts, and it's
You're
just
like, no.
like a word that's like fancy above it, but then like put your important text in a font that's easy to read, or like
Right.
color contrast, having text on images, like all of these things that are so basic for us that people just don't think about because they're not reading their text for comprehension. They're looking at it to make it look pretty. So
Pretty.
it's
Yeah.
just there's so many things you have to take into consideration that it's just so that's kind of what I'm doing with, I have a couple, new things going with overnight, and I like that I can provide a service to people that aren't ready for this custom stuff, that aren't ready for ongoing maintenance, that they have this website that they like either don't like or can't get to do what they wanted to do, and this way I can just give them a solid, awesome, like built for you website that is, an entry level kind of thing. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty excited about it and just
Yeah.
kind of
So
get
tell
as
us.
many
So
eyes
what?
on it as possible. So I'm like, here's podcast snippets, and I actually bought a neon sign that'll be here in hopefully 2 weeks, and because the logo is neon, so it's like the
Yeah.
O moon, so that'll be behind me.
Oh, nice.
It's
Yeah.
I'm so like
That's fun.
confident that this is something like I can execute on this. Like I'm just very excited about it. So I want like as many people to know about it as possible because if they don't need it, they know somebody that needs it. That like just the amount of time that it's going to take you to do a site that's great is not worth it, the money that you could just spend, and it's an investment in your business. Like if it's a personal site, do whatever.
And that's
Listen to
so.
podcasts.
So remind us again, like what Overnight's all about. It's about creating a quick site, so you don't have to think about it. You can get right down to business and
Yeah,
get
it's
launched.
hassle-free websites built while you sleep. My sleep is atypical. Um I am I am trying to introduce some structure into my days. So I do try to set the alarm at the alarm set for noon, and then so I'll spend about an hour in bed doing the admin stuff that you can do on your phone while I wake up. And then I'm up, and I tend to do the daily stuff, and then I'll work later. So it fits perfectly with the way that I work. Um,
Mm.
and it's for somebody who either has a new business or who is rebranding or who has a website that the business is growing, so they need to just start a website fresh. um, so I'm in the process of developing a directory of people that can help with these things, but when you're ready for an overnight website, you have content, you have branding, you have everything set. And so we'll take it and we'll design and develop a website for you, you know, overnight, basically. The design will happen. I am a developer. I have designers. So the design will happen a couple days before. So they'll do that, and then they'll hand it to me, and then I literally that night develop your site, and it's launched and it's done. Um,
Awesome.
and the reason I'm able to do that is because of the experience that I have.
Right.
So
Well,
I
right,
know.
and everything we were talking about here, like having everything ready to go and creating your own like toolkit to build these sites quickly. I mean,
Yeah, and it's a
very
service that, it's not a new thing. This has been in the industry for, a couple of years now at least. People will typically use either Squarespace or they'll use a builder. And so I'm of the philosophy that let's keep it as close to WordPress as possible and keep it as, future proof as possible so that it'll grow with you, and when you're ready, then you can add on to it. And this is your starting point for your
where do,
future website.
so it's somebody. What do you tell people that they're like, well, I could just build a Wix site or a Squarespace or whatever. How do you sell them on self-hosting your own WordPress site?
Well, I don't really sell anybody on anything because it's ultimately your decision, but
You give them the options.
yeah, it's really just about talking through what their current needs are, and to me, it's like if you really feel like you could, go give it a shot. You don't have to publish your Wix site. Go on Wix, sign up for a free account, and
Mm.
start and see if like some people get the hang of stuff really easily. But you just don't have the experience to be able to see those little things, right? So even Wix sites, you can tell when it's built. You have designers and developers building on Wix, and you can tell when a professional has built a site on Wix versus when a person who has a business built it on Wix. And if somebody wants to build their site on Wix, then they're not ready for an overnight website. They're ready to be a startup and pay $5 a month for Wix or whatever, because you need to at least have your own domain or whatever Wix is, and they can
Right.
go do that. But that's it's never going to calculate up. If all you do is have a Wix site for the rest of your life, you're still going to be cheaper than an overnight website. That's not the point.
Mm.
The point is,
Yeah.
are you ready to invest in your business? Are you ready to? I mean, so basically, my advice, if they're really adamant about it, is, you know what? Tomorrow, go on there and start, and then get back to me. And if you love it, do it. You can come back to me and I'll audit the site. I can do a quick free audit or I can do a paid audit where we dive in. I'll, help you out, and that's fine. I mean, there's many ways that I can help people, and then you can go about your life, but
Yeah,
it's just going to be the same.
so you kind of what is it? So you doing audits for your websites or for the client to make
Yeah.
the
So
decision?
just as a way to I started it as a way to just I want to see websites, because as website people, we tend to see the polished sites, the agency sites, the really nice inspiration sites. So I wanted to see what normal people's websites look like. So I just wanted to have send me all of your websites. What does it look like? And then so that sort of sparked this, well, let me just run I'm going to review it anyway. So I can just run through 10, 15 minutes tell you some basic things that like you or anybody could do. Um,
Yeah.
and that's, it's not a full audit. I'm not digging into anything, but like, here's a couple things that you could probably do. And then, if you did want me to dive into everything, I can do a paid audit where we've got a report. I'll go through all the pages. I'll go through and give you like a plan for what to fix first, second, and third, or if you shouldn't fix it at all. And this is really like the point of no return, and you should probably get something new. So, like, basically just assessing your current situation and then, take it from there. Whether that's an overnight website, whether that's something custom. That's one of the benefits of the type of maintenance that I offer. I don't do the lower base plans. A lot of people do that, and I can refer to a lot of different people who enjoy just having a bunch of sites that they can all, check 50 sites all at once and just do the plugins, do the basic stuff. Other people do that. I don't have the brain for that. That would be a little monotonous to me. And I'm great at doing the same thing over and over again, but I just can't. So I'm of the more like one-on-one kind of maintenance where I'm taking a site and we have some kind of plan where we're implementing some things that maybe are just too small for a project, where it's sort of like we can just spread this out over 6 months and do it that way, because they've got like a nice big site, and then we're like rotating through accessibility and security and site speed and SEO, and so we're just rotating through all of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so whether it's, but yeah, I think an audit is a great place to start unless you don't have a site. And then, because an audit's going to tell you where you are in relation to where you want to be. And
Yeah.
then
I mean, it forms the basis to create a roadmap to.
Yeah, and we do that anyway. The first month of any maintenance plan is an audit anyway. So,
Yeah, you
if
have
you
to. I
do
mean,
audits, then-
like I said, you can jump into a site and have it, you know, because of your experience,
Mhm.
because you know what, you've been doing this for a long time.
Mhm.
I mean, it's amazing how you can just log into a WordPress admin and immediately make
Mhm.
an assessment of how good or bad a shape they're in.
Pretty much with
And,
like 80% accuracy, I can usually
yeah,
tell you exactly what your problems are.
yeah. And so, and then offering the deeper. Okay, we need to look at the code. Let's look at the theme and how that was built. And yeah, we do
And how
something
that
similar to
aligns to
that.
your strategy. I think ultimately there's tools out there that'll do it. There's My Web Audit is the tool that I use to run the audit itself. But
Hmm.
all that does is tell you what's wrong and potentially how to fix it, but not how specifically to fix it, but like how to address it. So it doesn't
Yeah,
tell you like where in your site to go to fix this. It just tells you like how to fix this item, if that makes any sense. It's like it's not a how to, it's a what.
right.
Um, and so that's the report that you get a lot of times for a free audit. Very valuable, and you do have to pay for it. Like My Web Audit is a paid tool, so somebody is paying for that tool and giving like free audits in the hopes that they'll come back and become a client. That's a
Mhm.
great business model, and that's kind of where I'm basing what I offer on. But I just want to provide more. Like,
Mhm.
what are you going to do with this audit? It's the same thing as running your site through like a free SEO tool. It's like, okay, cool, here's my score, and here's a list of 35 things to do, but where do you start? What do you do? What's important? What's not important? What is never going to be fixed no matter how much time you spend on it? Like some things, it's always going to be like yellow,
You
and
need,
you're just
yeah,
never going to get it to
yeah,
green. It's just not. So
right.
it's just, providing my expertise in a way that I think is helpful. And so that's sort of
That's
where I'm
good.
at in terms of the business. I'm rebranding the studio, so that'll be coming
Yeah.
soon as well because I'm grown up now. It's the same people who come to me needing an overnight website. It's you've grown up. You need something big and professional and new. So I
What do
think
you
10
say?
years.
What do you say? Studio? You mean we're
Yeah, like we're a website development studio. So that's
okay?
kind of the word I use just
Gotcha.
because I don't ever like website development is what we are. We can attach, you can use our services as an agency, you can use our services as a business direct to us, but we just provide this one service and we have partners for other things. But we'll do technical SEO, but we're not going to do SEO strategy. We'll do web design, but we're not going to do graphic design. We have people who do that. We have like So this is I liked studio seems like it fit
Yes, nice.
what we are
Yeah,
rather than an
yeah.
agency. Like it's not huge. Like we're not this big thing. We're a website development studio. So right now it's paperback web development. I bought the domain for the new one, so I can talk about it because no one's going to go out and buy it. It's going to be Kinetic Iris. It's going to be the new studio.
Kinetic Iris.
Yeah, like the flower or the eye,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
iris.
gotcha.
Um, Kinetic for the motion, the momentum, building things, and things like
Take
that.
it.
So that'll be launched at some point, hopefully within the next couple of months. And yeah, it's just I'm not a freelancer. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a side hustle. I'm not we're a website development studio. Paperback was originally the like cheaper alternative to your giant enterprise stuff, and now we are the complete opposite of that. We are we're providing you custom stuff and custom maintenance and all that stuff. So it was time to grow
Nice.
up. So
Yeah.
so
That's
that's
cool.
yeah, exciting news. And so yeah, that's where we're at. We're going to provide, and then I'm kind of formulating different offers. I really I like processes, and I like the idea of like having the audit be the first thing that we do. Even if you're immediately signing on, you want maintenance, we're doing that. Your first month is the audit, and then the next 5 months is assessing all these other things and improving all these other things like the accessibility. Like we run through this like 6 month program. That's our, unless we've built the site, that's what you go through. And then after
Mhm.
that, then we, put you on a more,
Yeah.
ongoing plan.
And each one will be a little different because you're doing
Yeah.
it custom. So because everyone's needs are different, everyone has different problems and things to overcome or different goals they
Yeah,
have
I mean,
for the
sometimes
site.
clients are updating, sometimes they're not. Sometimes need staging or else, explosions happen. And sometimes you're like, well, we can just have backups, and if something happens, we restore a backup. There's
Yeah.
different things, and because sometimes staging just complicates things. If you don't need it, sometimes if they've only got a couple plugins that I, trust, you're like, I don't to put it into staging and then have to deal with the database and then have to. That's what WordPress needs to fix next is
Mm.
syncing databases between staging and live sites.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean Pantheon kind of does that because they don't really sync the database, but that's so you can like pull down before you work, but you're still not if you add pages, you still don't have those pages on the new
That's right.
on
Yeah.
the
Then
live.
how do you
Unless I don't
easily get them back over there?
Yeah, unless I don't not doing something right, which is possible. I'm not a hosting guru. You know,
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of you not doing something right. I think it's just one of those sticky parts of
yeah,
what we do. We have to
especially
figure out
WooCommerce.
how to sync things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right. For
that's
sure. Well,
scary.
that's great. I love like your enthusiasm around building your new brand and all that stuff. I think that's a really fun part of the process. It's the
Yeah.
only problem, like having a web a business for a while. Like we've been around for three
Oh,
plus years.
paperback's gonna be around.
It's
it's
still gonna be around. Yeah.
it's the business license. It's the where all the accounts are.
So that's not going
It's
anywhere.
like the umbrella.
Okay, gotcha.
It's
Yeah,
our home. It's where we were, and then maybe another 10 years from now, I'll eventually be able to get rid of it. But it'll be like the umbrella. I'll do a DBA for the new.
that's a good. Well, that's a good way to do it. I mean, Yeah, I mean, certainly it makes it easier to have an umbrella business like that, so everything can be branded. Kind of behind the scenes with that, and then they have your individual buckets of your little child businesses, and
Yeah,
then if one of those take over, then it's like okay, we're that now.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would
that's
love
fun.
to see an overnight website explode. I mean, I think I think it's it. It's the thing.
That's the attitude you need to have.
Right.
That's it. No, sometimes it's patience. It could happen overnight. It could happen. I mean, the first year or two of my agency, I was pretty much solo doing my thing and waiting for something to happen. But the last year and a half, it's been hockey stick.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's,
and
I mean, that's
so
the
you just
focus this year. That's, it's basically growth. Most of my sort of news, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not newsletter, mailing list. Most of my mailing list and most of my network is like people I've worked for or worked with, or, you know, people who would provide me with like referrals for the custom side and like all that stuff. I'm basically starting from scratch. I've never cultivated any kind of list of people who might need this type of service. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't expect it to, and an introvert and all of the other personal things that I'm not just a natural people collector. So it's just something that, I think it's just going to
Yeah,
take a lot more time. But this audit at least will provide me with a way to reach out to people so that they can at least know that I know what I'm talking about.
it's an entry point. I mean, in the beginning, I mean, um, it's just getting the word out. It's just letting the world know what you're doing. Keep
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. Get it on podcasts. Now we're just talking to everybody you know, even the random person. You never know
Yeah.
because that's the beautiful thing I found with networking. Even in the days I didn't know I was networking, I was just building relationships with people and just, and then suddenly 2, 3 years later, they refer somebody to me that becomes a huge account or something like that happens that surprises you. It takes time. You just cultivate those relationships. You don't put any pressure on them.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I'm not,
just
that's the other
let's be
thing.
friends. And
I don't want
yeah,
to give you a website that you don't need. Why,
yeah.
why bother? Go somewhere else. Like, I'm not your, I'm not everyone's solution, but
Yeah, I
overnight
mean,
is a lot of people's solution. Not
well, I
everyone's
mean, what?
answer, but I am a lot of people's
Yeah.
answer.
Yes, yes, you are. No, so one of the things that I learned this past year is it's not so much in the relationships you're building through networking. It's not so much that person you're networking with that you're going to get the business from. It's you're getting access to their network. And so that's kind of how that works. It's like you build individual relationships with people, you make friends, you have fun, you don't worry about it, no pressure, you're not selling them anything.
Yeah.
But that person at some point is going to be talking to somebody in their network and they're going to say, I do know somebody that does overnight websites. And
Mhm.
if you want to launch this quickly, that's how it's going to work. All right. Well, it's great talking to you.
Yeah.
As always,
A lot of fun.
great. Nice having the update and the check-in.
Yep.
So we'll have you back again someday.
Yeah.
We'll keep
Hopefully,
track.
next time you talk to me, I'm going to be having a wait list for overnight websites because there's too many. We'll have to hire on people to build websites because it's overnight and everybody needs it and loves it.
That's what that's so inspiring because seriously, because that is the attitude and the position you need to take. Is you are going to do this. There's no question. I
Yeah.
have no doubt because you're good at what you do. You're committed. Yeah. You'll do
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's all about feeling it, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially even with the studio side of things, it's like I'm, sharing my link on Facebook, but you're like something is needed, and then and then it clicks, and you're like, oh, this is this is it.
And
So by the
you
end of
just
this
keep.
year, everything
Yeah.
January 1st next year is things are everything's going to be fresh, new. This is the
Nice.
start of a new phase. So
Yeah, and you just keep trying and you keep working on it and keep, something will click eventually. It'll be good.
yeah,
I mean, I'll be here for it. I'm watching. I'm a fan. All right. All right. Till next time.
yeah. So overnight website is just overnightwebsite.com. I'm on all of the socials. Danielle
Yeah,
Zarcaro.
that's right. Where
The
can we
new
find you? That's what I
studio
was supposed to.
isn't live yet, but it'll be kineticiris.com as well. So keep
That's
trying it, bookmark it, come
a
back
great
to it.
name. Love it. Love it. Okay. Till next time. Take it easy. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.